it's a certain kind of time.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it's a certain kind of time. I think it's
Wasn't ready.
a Tulsi time. There we go. Surfs up and aloha. So, Daniel, I think the media is still surprised that progressives and the far left are defending Tulsi Gabbard. What's going on here?
Yeah, shocker. Okay, let's get into this article right away. No need to... Okay. Gabbard's lawyers released a letter that they sent to Hillary Clinton. We've talked about this in the show. This was the letter for defamation preparing for a lawsuit. And this entire article, you'll see very quickly, is what do we call it? Insane. Or maybe from the point of view of making money for someone and not caring about the greater good of the country, logical. So it is just this giant fluff piece, gaslighting you, gaslighting us, gaslighting anyone who says, hey, maybe Tulsi Gabbard has a few good points at least. So let's get into it. So it is important to note that since her first comments on the podcast she was on, Clinton hasn't mentioned Gabbard, while the congressman from Hawaii has been completely obsessed with Clinton. Clearly, completely obsessed. Right words. In addition to her regular appearances on Tucker Carlson's show, which we've gone over because she can't get on MSN, she can't get on CNN, and when she does get on, the same three questions every single time. As a reminder, this is the woman who purports to be running for the Democratic primary. I guess it's either she's running for third party or she's not serious. And in this case, her strategies are impossible to understand unless you realize that her only goal is to be the disruptor. And this goes to people that are cynical and only work with people that are trying to get their own agenda forward and aren't willing to throw their careers away for their greater good, wouldn't understand someone like Tulsi Gabbard. And they even loop Glenn Greenwald into this and how he defended her. And they go, well, this came from the woman who calls herself an anti-war candidate after supporting Russian bombing in Syria. And we checked just before the show started because they were referred to as a war crime. And this article is referring to the time that Russia did a bombing run that attacked terrorists, which we're supposed to hate, that we bomb all the time. Of course, we also bomb 90% civilians, but that's not past us. But in a nutshell, they're saying Tulsi Gabbard can't be called a pro-peace candidate because she's not against Russia blowing up terrorists that we trained, that we give weapons to, that Saudi Arabia gives weapons to. So then it goes on like this. The article just keeps devolving, and then it goes on to talk about how Glenn Greenwald has no right to like Tulsi Gabbard because of this straw man that has been put up, and as someone who didn't like Obama's droning, that he shouldn't, by definition, like her. He's being a hypocrite, blah, blah, blah. And then they're like, oh, but they think Russiagate was a hoax, which is a very oversimplified way of putting the media. Well, we've talked about on the show. I don't have to get into that too much. Then it goes into how Gabbard put a piercing, if inaccurate, appraisal of Kamala Harris's law enforcement and made it misleading, but it took off. We would call quite accurate all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
Paul. A lot of people in chat are asking if Tulsi has commented on Bolivia yet. And I want to say we haven't heard. When she does, we will let you know. Let's not judge Tulsi on her opinion on Bolivia before she's given it.
Yeah. And I think it's also very important to note that she was one of the first people to acknowledge Venezuela and the crisis in Iran before any of the other Democratic candidates said anything. I think right now, the difference between the Venezuela and Bolivia thing is that you had Trump basically spreading the word on Twitter, basically saying like, yeah, this is a coup attempt. For Trump's most articulate ways on how he handles himself on Twitter.
I mean, in Bolivia's case?
Well, no, but with Venezuela.
In
Venezuela. With Bolivia's case, however, he hasn't really he wasn't as vocal.
Well, yeah, let's just clarify that right now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is in a sense like, I would almost say like assuming Tulsi Gabbard's going to have the wrong take on Bolivia would be like assuming that Bernie Sanders doesn't answer a Fox call that something about Medicare for all, and assuming Bernie Sanders is going to say something like, we need a Medicare option. Tulsi Gabbard has a really good track record on this. Let's just wait for her to make a comment. If she makes the wrong comment, you're going to see us call it out when she does. But until she doesn't, her entire track record has been correct on how she calls it out. So instead of just assuming she'll say the wrong thing, let's assume that she's going to act historically.
And can I add two other
One
things?
second.
No, I don't think Bernie has said anything about Bolivia. Maybe
He said something.
He did.
But I think we're getting off track though to this.
I don't remember what he said.
We're getting off track to this article, which is devolving and itself getting off track. So maybe we're actually doing the right thing. So then the article goes about how dare people think Kamala Harris is Hillary? She's the female Obama. She had her candidate start on Martin Luther King Day, which is of course very important to running a country. And it just devolves and devolves and devolves because it's supposed to start out as a Tulsi smear piece and it just feels like a rant. So let's just end it with this. But when articulated as extensions of Clinton, they are what make Harris both a target and a threat to the far left. Gabbard play a role as a disruptor by taking on the threat in the July Democratic debate. As a result, those on the far left have her back, basically ending with the statement of the only reason people are defending Tulsi Gabbard is because she went after Kamala Harris. This entire article, if I was Kit, I would tear this up, but I am not. I like saving this paper. What I will do is I can just do that. That's fine. I can do that.
Perfect.
This is an article that was written, as Kit would say, maybe it's a rent was due, but this is just. We've seen the establishment get more and more backed into a corner, and I think this article is exactly that. Because if Tulsi Gabbard is such a non-issue, she's at 2%, she's irrelevant, why do every single show is there a smear piece written about her? If she was truly irrelevant, if she really meant nothing, if she, we don't see people talking about Stair, Castro's not really being talked about anymore, Corey isn't being talked about anymore, so why does Tulsi get all these articles?
Okay, so here's the thing. When Representative Tulsi Gabbard first entered into this race, day one, smeared as a Russian asset, smeared as an Assad apologist. Then people were saying that she is the next Jill Stein. All of these have been debunked. And she said for 1,000 times, 2,000 times that she's never going to run for third party. The reason why she's gaining traction is because she took out Tim Ryan. She took out Kamala Harris. She took out the corporate media. And yes, she even stood toe-to-toe with Hillary Clinton and put her in her place. She's the only one who has an active lawsuit against Google for the very fact that Google basically censored any kind of search for her after the first and second Democratic primary debates. Corporate media and the DNC establishment never forgave Tulsi Gabbard when she stepped out of line, when she decided to call out the election fraud during 2016. And I'm going to speak for myself. Look, I'm going to be critical of all the candidates, from all the progressive candidates that are running for congressional seats to Senator Bernie Sanders, and yes, even Representative Tulsi Gabbard. But as a United States veteran, as someone who served in the Marine Corps, 2 tours in Iraq, I take a lot of pride seeing someone who put on the American uniform and actually step up and lead. And it brings a lot of pride because, look, veteran suicide rates are very high in this country. And here you're seeing a strong woman, Representative Tulsi Gabbard, who's constantly dealing with all these smears. I'm surprised she's able to keep her composure. But she's dealing with this, and at the same time, too, representing a lot of veterans who right now are in some very bad spots. But she's doing the right thing. She's doing the good thing, and she's fighting the good fight. And I believe in what she stands for. I believe that she is a strong progressive and that she is correct on a lot of these issues. And I'm looking forward to see how she handles herself during the 5th Democratic debate. And look, I'm going to be honest. Right now, at that debate, she's going to really need to be vocal and actually speak over people. I've noticed that, during the couple times she's been quiet here and there, and yes, the moderators have been ignoring her. That's very true. And even the microphone from the second debate was silenced. But she's going to have to be vocal and make her presence known and convince voters that she is a strong candidate. And yes, she's going to have to go on attack against Senator Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and yes, even Joe Biden. She's going to have to make her presence heard. But at the end of the day, we're going to have to get to use to more of these smear articles against progressives and independents. We're going to have to see them more, and it's going to be a constant thing. But it's our job to call out the BS. And I'm very proud that she's still in this race. Paul.
I think you're exactly right. I want to echo a lot of what's already been said. A lot of what has already been said, we have already said before. Tulsi is great. It seems like these type of smears are a continued effort to delegitimize her in people's minds. There are legitimate criticisms of Tulsi Gabbard. These are not them. And the legitimate criticisms really come down to kind of minutia type things or open questions about how she might handle certain situations or some specific positions that have a lot of context behind them. But in terms of broad strokes, what we know about Tulsi is extremely favorable. There's no reason not to support her as a candidate. She's an excellent top-tier candidate, in my opinion. And these type of smears are so off base that it tells you that even the minutia criticism, even the when you get down to the, but what about this in this particular scenario in the context of this and historically, blah, 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 that's never going to stick. That's not the, I mean, that would be an interesting conversation, and that might be a way that one might decide between candidates in the debate format if they were done in a way that didn't encourage 30-second soundbitey nonsense. But she does do the 30-second soundbite thing well and takes aim at centrist candidates. So that's great. And the mainstream press is just criticizing her on all the wrong points.
Yeah, I'll just make a final note before we round out the story. That is, it's sort of annoying because I feel like we covered this article like a dozen times already. But what we've seen before and what mainstream media will do is they will just make a talking point. Doesn't matter if it's real, doesn't matter if it's accurate, doesn't matter if it's in your best interest, and they will just hammer it home every single day, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, until everyone just believes it. And so every time we read one of these articles, part of what we're doing is being consistent in trying to push back that message so you guys can let other people know that this is happening. Because now, again, this is, again, like the 30th article that's basically like, it's hard to even read these anymore because it's like, oh, I know what the next sentence is going to be. It's always Tulsi. It's formulaic. It's a formula that they were trying to force in. It doesn't matter if Tulsi Gabbard is a round peg. They have a square hole that is their narrative, and they are going to fit her through whether she likes it or not. And I've said before on the show, and I'll say it again, we shouldn't have to cover Tulsi as much as we do, and we wouldn't if there wasn't as much attack against her. And I don't think they understand the implications of their attacks. The attacks by corporate media, the attacks by Hillary Clinton, the attacks by the establishment are I think the biggest thing going for Tulsi Gabbard in terms of popularity, because a lot of people have realized at this point in time, if this many people hate you, you must be doing something right. If Tulsi wasn't talked about like Cory Booker, I don't think she'd be as high as in the polls as they are. So their own standard way of attacking and trying to shut her down continues to backfire, and she continues to get more popular, more relevant. So there you have it.